Well, hello. If you have ever felt like your days are just a grind, like it's sluggish and there's no energy, there's no motivation, there's no inspiration, today's show is for you.
Okay, we're going.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, we're going.
Welcome to the Healing is Possible experience. I am your host, author, emotional healing and relationship coach, and media personality, Rebeccah Silence. And the Healing is Possible experience is here every single week to take you on a journey back to a life you love, back to a place where you feel free, comfortable in your own skin, and like your life is yours. Today's episode is so special and important to me because I want all of you watching to have every day feel like it's a dream come true day. And I am not being idealistic or wanting you to be more positive. That's not the point. I hate the idea of be more positive. It's about what if it is possible for your days to be fulfilling? As simple as that sounds, how game-changing is that for every part of your life, for your health, for your relationships, for your productivity, for your career, for your service, right? So, very special guest here with us today, Teri Karjala. She is a transformational life strategist, the founder of Creative Counseling Center and Talking with Teri, best-selling author of Be the Magic of You, Tools to Transform Your Life with a Foreword written by Jack Canfield. She has been featured on many television podcasts, radio shows, and is a regular guest on Channel 7 and Fox 21 stations here in Denver. And she is a coach with Forbes, host of a top 100 podcast, host of Talking with Teri TV, which I have been honored and privileged to be a guest on. And without further ado, let's just dive in as two thought leaders around empowerment, especially female empowerment. Teri, welcome to the Healing is Possible experience.
Oh my goodness, I'm so delighted to be here with you.
Yes. So, first of all, I love to ask this question of my guests. What does healing mean to you?
Oh my goodness. I think it's a personal journey. Like I honestly think, when I was trained as a therapist, and so I think healing is this is a process because healing takes place at every kind of major milestone. And I always joke with my husband that I've evolved so many times that he actually married like 7 different versions of me, right? Like because I've evolved through healing, my own personal healing journey. And I just think it's pretty remarkable. And I think, the healing process is not for the faint of heart, and it is for those folks that are really courageous in doing so. And I think so many nuggets come, are presented to us in our own healing journeys.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you could just define healing in your terms,
Yeah.
what would you describe it as?
I would say it's a process in which it's a process in which we are stepping into our authentic self. And because I think that's the healing process, like it blossoms out of the healing process, we blossom into our authentic selves. And what we're here to do what is our purpose, our passion, and that's what fuels our potency, and that is what gives life to us. That's what gives meaning to us.
That's so beautiful. And I think it's a great segue into what we're talking about, right? Because, I did a post yesterday where I was saying, authenticity never cost us anything. It just shows us what's real.
You know what's so exciting? Like for the listeners, I am just so excited that like authenticity is becoming like the new thing, right? It's the new phase, it's the new whatever. But guess what? Do you remember like phases when you were like had to have everything perfect and polished and da da da? There was so much pressure. But now on social media, everyone's wanting authenticity. So it's even easier just to show up and be you, So I'm loving this new phase that we're in, this evolutionary phase that we're in, that's like, yes, let's tap back into what's really authentically ourselves.
Right. And, back to my quote yesterday, authenticity never cost us anything. It just shows us what's real. And I think this conversation, you really can't supercharge your day with inspired action without authentically knowing what actions make sense for you, right? So I think this is such an important conversation. It's inauthenticity that just steals our joy, steals our energy, steals our fulfillment and our days and our lives. But I think a lot of people, as normalized as this terminology authenticity is, I think a lot of people are like, well, what's that mean? Even purpose, like, well, what's
Yeah.
that mean? Like, how do I get there? And it isn't about stress, pressure, momentum, get stifled with stress and pressure for sure. And I think a great way to know you're out of alignment with authenticity, and I want to hear what your thoughts are on this too, but is if you are feeling stress and pressure, you're not authentically in alignment with you, the you want to be. What would you say about that?
Well, I think we're born as pure positive energy, right? And, and I think our journey takes us there. And there's a lot of things that occur in our lives, past traumas, past, the things that we're healing from. And I think that those things I truly believe they happen for us, not to us. And they are helping shape and guide us to the person that we get to become. And in that journey, but what happens for a lot of us is that we take that the things that served us to a certain point, those behaviors or situations, and then we take them forward where they stop serving us. And then that's when there's a challenge that happens, that we have to overcome. And that's the work. That's really the healing process. I think that's like the yummy healing process within that. And then when we start to work on that and transform that, I think that takes us and leads us. And I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with that the thing that they were most afraid of, the thing that was so terrifying that they resisted or whatever it was, became the thing that they had the most gifts in and that could serve the bigger, the world in a bigger way.
Yeah. Or like Jamie Kern Lima talks about, the thing you think disqualifies you is actually what qualifies you, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's what I hear
But I
when you're
think,
saying this.
yeah. And so when you go back to this alignment piece, again, we're born these pure positive energies, and somewhere, I always joke that we kind of get bounced off the track and we lose weight, and then we come and we eventually we find back the track and we're like, oh, here it is. Now I gotta get my train back on the track. And as soon as we get that, we get back into alignment, life does feel like we're like on this train track where it's just there's some ease to it. Not to say we're not gonna hit some bumps along the way. But I do agree with you that when we're out of alignment, there is stress, tension, it's our body's way of telling us like, hey, pay attention. There's something that's not in alignment here.
Yeah. Well, and, back to your point about how we're born, I also think we're born trusting ourselves. We're
Oh,
not
yeah.
confused about what we need and what we want and how we feel. And we're not questioning it until we're about 4. And then we start to realize there are reactions to our truth. But what I just want people to know and hear and understand is our truth was never the problem. We just disconnected from our truths
Yes.
for whatever reason because of the reactions, modeling, environment we were in. And so I think it is about getting back to a place of loving and trusting ourselves again. And then, I've got clients, for example, they had a baby die unexpectedly in a tragic way. I would suggest it's not necessarily for anyone that's like, oh God, I don't believe everything happens for me. I just want you to hear whatever happened, it's life being life. And there is a way to use it to your advantage. And
Yeah,
there
you got
is a way,
that.
regardless of what occurred or where you
Yeah.
found yourself, to more than ever before prioritize alignment. And again, we're talking about taking inspired action to supercharge your day, but
Yeah.
this isn't some toxic positivity conversation. It
Yeah.
really
No,
is
yeah.
about your days being yours. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I say, especially when folks, back in the therapy world day, folks would come in, and I would, not necessarily say that, this is happening for you, right? I think, hey, but
Right. We
oftentimes
don't
what
say
would
that to
happen, of course, it's devastating, it's traumatic. But what would happen at the very end, they would see, again, I have seen so much traumatic things in my life, as far as what clients have brought into the, into the world. And even like when I'm working with entrepreneurs, it is like, there's just all this, this hurt, this pain, this trauma that's come in. But when they heal from it, they can actually see the gifts. They can actually see the awarenesses, the insights, their selves as, growing and expanding, and then stepping into, and I would say most of the folks that I've worked with, the trauma, their gifts came out of the trauma. And so then that's what they're here to create, this huge impact. And it's like pretty phenomenal how, they take that one thing and then they just transform it, and it becomes their life legacy, impacting others and millions of people. Right. And so, tying back to the conversation about, supercharging our day is, yes, we do have to do the work, to do that, to get into that place of what is our purpose? Why are we here? What are we doing? Because if we're going to be taking action, like you said, we got to make sure that we're taking action on the things that are in our alignment with what we're here to do,
Yeah. Well, and even before we started recording, you and I were talking offline about, as we're both growing and changing so fast, some things that used to be in alignment are now maybe needing to be released and or transformed. So this isn't like, oh, you need to find your purpose and then you've got it handled and figured out for the rest of your life. I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's
it's always
about,
evolving. Yeah.
right? I think it's moment to moment, having the ability to check in, to know whether or not you're aligned, to get back to a place of alignment. And from there, we can powerfully choose. And I couldn't agree more. My clients coming in with whatever traumas they've realized were an issue, or maybe they didn't even realize were an issue. Once they've healed through that, they've got a skill set that makes the world a better place, period, end of story. And it doesn't have to be that you're in toxic positivity mode. Oh, how do I find the gifts in the bullshit?
Yeah.
But you can know that what it took for you to lead at and as your best through that, that is a gift you're blessing the world with. And those skills, who knows where you're going to use them or how or why,
Yeah.
but they can be used to serve at the highest levels. So,
And as you said that, like, we're here to evolve, right? We're here to evolve and grow. And I think of my purpose, like if you would have asked me 20 years ago, my purpose was very different 20 years ago than it is today. And it's because of that evolution and that growing. Now, all of that was a fundamental foundational piece that we needed to have this, for me to grow into this, and so my purpose is really, like, I would say it's about an 80-degree change from where it started. And
yeah.
so I think as long as we're, and you teach about awareness and insight and all of this, and I think the more that we can tap into that and listen to it and be guided by it, without question, going back to what you just said, is like trusting ourselves and returning back to that ability to trust ourselves and knowing that we have everything within us to move forward.
Yeah. The process I teach, and I'm curious if you have a process that you use with your clients too, is the process of following your yes. We
Mhm.
all know the difference between, is something a yes or is something a no? And
Yeah.
how often are we trained, especially in this culture, to deny our no because we don't want to create a rift, or we don't
Yeah.
want to make things worse, or we don't have to deal with some type of high stake illusion or potential fallout, right? But what if we all can check in? Is this a yes for me, or is this a no for me? And then sometimes it can be a yes for you and you're scared and there's resistance, but it's still a yes.
I
So
know, and we're very in alignment. We were talking about this earlier, that we were so much in alignment. Yes, the
yeah,
same thing. I do it from an energetic perspective, so I help them tap into from an energetic. So we do some kinesiology, and
yeah,
so it is, what it is it's increasing the intuition, and eventually, I'll teach them how to do some basic kinesiology, and then we move into sensing, which is that's all internal process. But it's what's really interesting is starting to teach ourselves when it's a yes, and honoring that, and when it's a no and honoring that. Because I'll be honest, I had this really amazing opportunity that landed on my plate right before the pandemic. And it was a huge, huge network that wanted me, and they called me out of the blue. It was the weirdest thing. They had one person selected here in Colorado and one person selected in California, because that's where their studios are. And they came on and said, "We would love you to come on as the expert," and da 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 da. Huge, huge opportunity. And I kept testing it and I kept getting no, 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 no. And I kept working with the producer and I turned it down. And afterwards, everyone was like, you did what? You did. I was like, it wasn't in alignment, even though it was huge network. And I am so blessed and grateful that I listened to it because they had a twist unbeknownst to me, and it could have damaged my reputation. It could have damaged my company, my other company significantly. It could have done so much bad PR in
Yeah.
such a short amount of time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like so grateful. And so when we start to, and again, when we're starting to honor and listen to it, we may not even know right there in the moment why we're getting a yes or why we're getting a no, but just trust it
Yeah.
and trust and build that, because it's really, we're building up our intuition. We're really going back into that wisdom, place in our soul, of really being guided in this lifetime.
I love that, because truly you don't need a reason to justify
Yeah,
the direction, the choice.
yeah,
It can be as simple as, wait a minute, does this feel right or not? And there's, again, the only thing you have to lose is you. Don't
yeah,
you dare let that happen by
yeah.
betraying your own truth. So I think this
And,
is,
and here's the thing is, even when we get a no, we might think it's devastation or whatever. I almost can guarantee that that no will be the door opening for so much more than you could have even imagined, you know.
well, right. And trusting it, that is the supercharge. And I do share this publicly. I quit chemo, muscle testing, and chemo was a no. And I never suggest that cancer patients, especially the
Yeah,
situation I was in, I had a 5% chance to live, and treatment isn't available except for chemo. They've done all the surgeries they can do.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly on paper looked nuts. And my family
Yes.
was like, oh my God, we love you, but oh my God.
Right. Isn't that true? Like when we're standing in our knowing, and it's really about standing in your knowing, and it doesn't matter whatever the naysayers around you saying or whatever, because you're like, you have lost your mind, right? But it's powerful to be in that presence of just knowing and trusting, like, you know what? I have no idea, but I'm just going to trust this direction. And look at you, you're here today battling cancer in a unique, I only heard a little bit about your story when you were on the show, but
Yeah.
it's a powerful story of how you overcame, but in all fairness, you were trusting you.
Right. Well, and my definition of healing is it doesn't hurt anymore. On the other side of the healing is love. And
Yeah.
that to me is just that place of unshakable wholeness and connection to
Yeah.
yourself, to the divine, to life. Right. And I think it's always worth it. Not everyone, wants to take that journey, and that's okay. But for those of you that are concerned, well, I don't even know how to know my knowing, or what my knowing is,
Right.
or what's a yes or what's a no. Just find what you know is a yes. I'm a
Yeah.
big jewelry fan. Like picking
Yeah.
out jewelry for the day, that's always going to be a yes for me, right?
Yeah.
Like it's that simple,
Yeah.
and from there, if I can trust myself to pick out the right jewelry, if I can trust myself to choose the right guests, the right professional opportunities, I mean, it
It
all
just builds,
builds.
it builds. And then again, your brain will start to seek out that evidence and support more of that evidence by saying, yes, I trust myself. I trust that this
Right.
process. And there's going to be times when we make choices that are not in alignment, or there's going to be a choice that I'll give you an example. And it still was in alignment, but I didn't think it was in alignment. So I hired somebody and I got a yes. And I even take it out 5 years to kind of look at, if I make this choice, would this be a contribution to 5 years from now? And I got a yes too. And I was like, oh, and I hired her. And then 3 months later, she was a disaster. And I was like, what is happening? I had to let her go. And I kept saying, what the heck? So I started questioning my ability to hire somebody. And here's what, and I kept working on this because I was like, I got to have some clarity around this. Like, what the heck happened? And come to find out, I had let go of other people in our company, like admin and more admin types of jobs, but I had never let go in that company a therapist. I had no protocols, I had no systems, I had no like termination, exit, like how does that look? How does that work for the company and the clients and everyone else that's involved? And so it was really interesting. That experience allowed me to put protocols in place. And even though I got a yes for it, and again, I got a yes for it so I could have that experience so that I could put things in place so that I could be prepared for the next time. Right. And it was just one of those things that's like, wait, I started questioning myself, but it was, I saw the gifts in it. I saw what the message was for me, the learnings from it, if you will, from that. And so sometimes we can question ourselves, like, what the heck? But if we trust and we really just start tapping into it, and I do feel like it, like you said, it is a muscle that we can work, and we can start working that muscle and getting more and more confident with it. And so pretty soon it's just like, yes, no, I love it.
Absolutely. And it might not have always worked, but your most aligned decision at the time, you can stand behind. And then you can know if something didn't work, I'm not going to repeat it again. And again, there's nothing you can't use to your advantage. There's nothing you can't take the information that you've gathered and make an empowered decision. And another way to look at yes, no, is just, I think, the metrics of empowered versus disempowered. Is it empowered? I've got clients all the time when I'm working with families and couples where someone is a real hard, it's a yes to get a divorce. Well, is it empowered? Are you clear? Or is it disempowered and you're hopeful that the divorce will rescue you from your pain and eliminate your patterns, right? Like this conversation is going in a direction, that I didn't expect, but I'm so glad that we're talking about this because these are real things. And I want to go back to the word you used, purpose. And I want to invite people to consider, because now let's talk about actually supercharging your day and designing your day plan. And let's look at purpose. And my word for that would be intention. Like, are you intentional? And again, is your intention and is your purpose, is the point behind your decisions, one after another, empowered or disempowered? Are you choosing what's a yes because your day is either supercharged and inspired because you followed your yes, you were intentional in an empowered direction, or not? Thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I had someone yesterday we were interviewing, and she was talking about productivity and how this came about. Was like, we talked about so often, especially for entrepreneurs, when we get into that, go mode, whether we're just starting out or we're expanding, because as we expand, more projects come on our plate. But oftentimes we get out of our zone of genius by doing all these other things that are bogging us down. And so it may be, for me, it was bookkeeping. Like, as soon as I was out of alignment, because it wasn't my skill set. Like, I'll be honest.
I'm not a bookkeeper.
And I would be, and as soon as I get into the bookkeeping, I'm like, well, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, but like, I would get behind like 3 months of invoicing and billing, and and because I hated it. And so I would get into that doing it, and then I'd be bogged down. And so for me, that was not serving me in my, leveraging my business. And so I was like, I got to get that outsourced. Like, how quickly can I get this outsourced? So I think about, when we're being intentional, it's like, okay, what's in my zone of genius? What is the thing that only I can do? And let's stay there. Everything else. And now here's the thing, bookkeepers love their jobs. They love it. They're like, yes, because they're in their zone of brilliance, right? CPAs, they love their job because they're in the zone of brilliance. My office manager, my, my executive, like, they're in their zone of brilliance. So they love it, right? Just like we are doing what we're doing. We love it, right? And so I think that's really important to look at. What is it that is really the thing that I got to be doing? What are the things that I can be outsourcing? And a lot of times people will resist, I should say, outsourcing because they are afraid that's going to cost a lot of money. And I invite people to look at, what do you pay yourself to do that task? And what would you pay somebody else to do that task? Oftentimes there's a huge discrepancy in those pieces. And you would be shocked to find that it's more affordable than you think. Even if you get a virtual assistant or something like that, just to help take off the things that are no longer, necessarily in your zone of genius, that you can really, supercharge your day with.
Well, and I think too, it's worth pointing out, the more in alignment you are, the more you'll attract people in alignment. Because I think,
Yeah.
I've had producer type people working with me that didn't actually love being producers, but they
Yeah.
were afraid to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
Then the more
Agreed.
aligned you get, the more you attract people in alignment that can support you. And
Mhm.
then I think, I don't know if you've ever done this, Teri, but I did an exercise decade or more ago where I wrote out my ideal day. So if you're watching and you've never done this, what's your ideal day? Get intentional, get, purpose driven around. If we had a magic wand, and I do, I have mine behind me all the
Oh,
time.
I love it. I love it. Good.
Yes,
Good, good, good.
but what would you want to make sure was included in your day? I think we do want to make sure we know our zone of genius. We do want to know our yes, our no. We do
Yeah.
want to be empowered in our decisions. But have you thought about beyond just the daily grind and the bare
Yeah.
minimum, how in an ideal world you would be spending a day? And you can do it two ways. How would I be
Yeah.
spending a day professionally? How would I be spending a day personally? Like, these are very important questions for consideration. And eventually, I mean, my life, you tell us about you, Teri, but my personal, professional days, they're not different. It's not, compartmentalized. How I live is my way. How my clients live is their way. And they're not confused that they're the leader of their lives. So give us some ideas and tips or even examples of exercises you've
Yeah.
done to get your days. My days, every one of them are an ideal day at this point. And I
Yeah.
remember when I first did this, I was like, well, yeah, friggin' right. But okay, write it out. Like, I had no belief that I could
Yeah.
actually have that happen.
Yeah. I do love that exercise. I call it the perfect day. And it's like writing out your perfect day. But I've also taken it where I record it as if I'm talking about it. And I'm like, I'm waking up. I hear, the sounds of the beach outside crashing against my window. I'm running down to the beach to do a workout, and run through what that ideal perfect day is, and really add in all the senses. And then when I'm brushing my teeth, it's literally 7 minutes. When I'm brushing my teeth, I hit play so that I'm like,
Okay.
yes, like I'm taking back and I'm playing with my ideal day. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm creating. That's what I'm creating and generating, right? But I will tell you this: one of my best hacks in really creating, I love pulling in energy. I love allowing us to work smarter, not harder, and utilizing energy into our day very intentionally. You talked about intentions. I'm a huge believer in intentions. I have my intention planners, because it's so important. It's so important because when we talk about law of attraction, people are like, oh yeah, and when they think that word, a lot of people just think, oh yeah, I do my vision board once a year. Well, okay, that is one thing. And I invite, if ever anyone wants to connect, I'm happy to give you some pro tips on how to activate your vision board so it's actually working for you, and not against you. But I'm a big believer in order for us to supercharge our day, my daily routine starts the night before. So I talk about ending your day and being in your power. So at night is really when I consider my daily, my routine starting. But the word power, POWER. So the first one is we're planning. I like to set the intentions of my day. And in my planner, like I literally plan out my day in the beginning. And what happens is the last 45 minutes of your day gets processed 7 times more than it does any other time of day. So when we're looking for the how, this is how it works. You put it out there. And then you and I have experienced that when you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta call Rebecca. I gotta call Rebecca. I gotta call Rebecca. And then Rebecca calls me and I'm like, I was just thinking about you, right? Well, we can actually do that on a regular daily basis intentionally with creating that through energy and action. And so that is one of the ways. And so we plan it out. What does that look like? I actually in my planner have like a little exercise to work the reticular activation system, so that when we start to become aware of, those opportunities, those synchronicities, if you will, those things that become in alignment, and we start working that muscle intentionally, so that we can start showing up. O is for the observe. So we observe and we create the evidence. So what was it? So from, tonight, when I get home, I'm going to look at all the evidence. Oh my gosh, I had, what was it today? Oh, so I was on Fox 21 this morning, and there was a situation that happened. I was like, oh my gosh, that just fulfilled this, and now it's connecting this. And so it's like, there's some evidence that that was just really effortless, that those two got connected, and now we're going to promote this with this, right? So so that's the evidence. And I might have been like, my desire is to see a heart today, and I might have seen that somewhere along the way, right? So I'll write down the evidence that things are showing up, and it's really going back into what you said, like that trusting piece, like getting our yeses, right? And then W stands for, writing gratitude. I love gratitude and love are the highest vibrations. So writing down what we're grateful for. And then I usually do some energy questions that are expansive questions, like, I'm focusing on one big target right now. So I will ask the question at night, why is it so easy for me to blank? Why is it so easy for me to, close more clients? Why is it so easy for me to create more connection in my life? Why is it so easy for my body to heal from XYZ, right? So whatever it is, I start to add, those energy in there. And then the last one is to R, which is realign. And that's aligning the brain. So I do a couple things with that. I have a couple of machines that I use to, binaural beats is one of them you can do. I have a healing machine and a beamer machine that I use too, just really for whole body, health, and so it's really aligning me so that I can start the next day. And then I have a morning routine that I go through as well. But I just, if nothing else, is how do we start incorporating these routines at night to really allow ease and flow into our day.
Well, and I think that is the key, right? Ease and flow. And I love your formula. And I just want to point out, Teri's routine or my routine, it's not necessarily going to be the magic bullet for you, right? It's finding.
And you can tweak
right?
the process and what works for you and what is an alignment. Because I've had clients who are like, oh, you know what, I want to do this. I'm like, great, go for it, And so whatever that is is going to, and here's the thing, we were talking about this, it has evolved. Like
right.
how my morning and my evening routines have evolved, in the last 25 years. It's very different than it used to be when I was just, starting this journey out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you can start simple. What's one thing that you can do every morning to supercharge your day? Because it's inspired. It's you connected to your spirit. That's the definition of inspired. What's one thing you can do at the end of the day? And then take inventory as you go through your day. Is this draining me? Is this energizing me? And please, I'll leave us with this disclaimer. Do not light a match and try to blow up everything, because now you're like, oh my God, none of what I'm doing or how I'm living.
No, but taking one thing that, I love taking like one thing and especially when it comes to habit formation, right? When we're creating healthy habits, it's, and taking action, take one thing and pair it, and pair it to something that you're already doing successfully. Like, so if you brush your teeth at night, you could pair something with brushing your teeth to make it stick longer, and stronger.
Well, and adding in versus trying to restrict yourself and take away. Like, don't tell yourself, oh, these are all the things I have to stop doing because I know it's not good for me. Well, just add in something that is. So there's not a right or a wrong way. And your days can be yours.
Yeah, I have this. So the morning routine, I have one that's is like starting your day with impact, right? So IMPACT. So the I stands for envision. So visualization, right? Spending some time in that place of creating that ideal day or what that looks like, meditating or some form of active mindfulness, right? Practicing as if. This is such a fun activator. I will just tell you. So it's called acting as if, and it's the 33-second exercise. I'm not going to do it right here with you, but I'll explain what it is. So basically you get in acting as if you've already achieved whatever. Okay. It could be a big target that you have. It could be a big meeting, whatever you would like to be. Because for most of us, if we've had an opportunity come to us, and we hang up, we're like, yes, we get excited about it. But for 33 seconds, you act as if you're celebrating it. And it supercharges the vibration because you go immediately into a place of gratitude and love. And you can actually supercharge your generation and creation and pulling it into your manifestation realm. And it's really powerful. It's really fun to play with. Impact. So P, the practice. A is for the activity or exercise. And I'll be honest, like my exercise, not always is in the morning. Sometimes tonight it's going to be in the evening because I left the house early this morning, right? So you could modify that piece. And then the C is connecting with your inner power. So I just hands to heart, just taking a deep breath. And then I will usually say a little, like, saying to myself kind words, or sometimes I do a power pose, hands on hips, hands up in the air. So just really connecting back into my power and my presence. And then the last thing is the T, which is train, or learn. What are you learning? What are you doing to expand yourself, your knowledge? And it could be on any topic, but it's really keeping that brain active in learning and expanding, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that people come to me for in private practice is they want a lifestyle change, right? And so today's episode, I think, is a great example with a beautiful guest who knows herself, trusts herself, is living her way. And there's not a right or a wrong. There's just what works for you. And I promise, even if it feels extremely out of reach, it's not as far away as you think.
Yeah. And let's be real. Let's unpack this for a second, because I want you to, like, it's not that I'm like, I still have my stuff. I still have my challenges. I still have like those moments where, like, what the heck? Where did that come from? Like, some things that like come out of the blind side. But it's realizing, like, those things that are showing up, or that are, I always call them the tests, right? The universal test. We're either on the student path or the master path. So anytime we learn something, whether we're starting out in a new career or a new experience, or I started taking hip hop classes for the first time just because I like to do things outside of, like, I was on the student path. And then at some point, maybe in this lifetime, I'll get on the master path. I'm not really sure about that one, but eventually we'll move to the master path. And at any point, we're going to have tests. We're going to have tests as a student, learning whatever. And we might be like, are you sure you want to continue doing this? And we'll get tests. And then even though we pop over to the master path at some point, we're going to be tested too, and again, I do believe that we're in this area where we can look at those tests as just that, and not have to take us completely off. And the more that we work on ourselves, the more that we can stand in that place. Those hiccups or those detours or whatever are just that. They're just, we don't give them as much power, right?
And I'm imagining it like, if our job is alignment, which is really what today's show is all about, we can all just decide on an identity level that we are the master, at least of our own life. I think about the holiday. The movie The Holiday, right? Where he's saying, Winslet, right? Are you the leading lady or are you the best friend, right? Like, we are the master of our life. And if our job is alignment, of course, life is going to happen and we have opportunities to keep alignment on course. I want us to lighten up and take the pressure off, because we can't do it wrong. And we can still be a student as we take ownership and mastery over our own life, and more importantly, our own life experience. So Teri, this was so good. Thank you for being here today. How do people get in touch with you?
Yes, the best way is the website, Talking with Teri, that's TERI.com. And they can pop over as well to Talking with Teri TV over on YouTube.
Beautiful. And please visit RebeccahSilence.com. This show, The Healing is Possible Experience, is brought to you by RebeccahSilence.com and my gorgeous team. We are here for you. Visit us and download right away the free Trigger Trauma Release Masterclass, so that in just about a half an hour, I can personally take you through where there might be misalignment, that you're over it. You just don't know how to break through. We are so grateful for you. Breathe and align, breathe and align. The darkness is real, but so is the light, and healing is possible. And not just for some of us, for all of us. for you, for me, for all of us. Love you. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you soon. Mwah.